Welcome to the ever-expanding world of snowboard gear polyamory that is the Good Ride. I'm James Beastie, and today we're talking about the Stone Farther. And other than a lot of extra structure in the base that I'm not particularly a fan of, there's very little to complain about this board, except for maybe saying it only has two sizes, and I think they should really expand this board out because this is a Good Ride favorite. It's going to be a board I'm recommending a lot. It's got a fun, slashy, turny feel in powder and on groomers. It's a board you can take out in both conditions and it performs equally well. It's not too far set back, but yet it has that set back, surfy feel that a lot of people like. And I think this is a very recommendable alternative free ride-ish kind of board that a lot of people will really enjoy. So I primarily tested this with my Union Force bindings and my Nitro Team TLS boots. I got this in a wide variety of conditions, everything from a little bit of powder to a little bit more powder to some good groomers. And I compared it against a wide variety of boards, primarily the White Space Icona, because they have a very similar shape, although a very different camber profile. I also compared it to the Burton Sketch Artist, the Burton Smooth Operator, the Weston Backwoods, and a few other boards as well. And this is an honest, objective review for you, the consumer, with zero brand oversight and zero compensation for doing this review. And I can do that thanks to your reader support and also our sponsor, Blower Board Shop, who's been around forever selling to snowboarders. They're a family-run business with a large online presence. They compete against the big stores on price, shipping, and customer service very well. So if you want to support honest, objective content from the Good Ride and one hell of a good shop, click through our links to Blower Board Shop and buy something. It would be greatly appreciated. So let's talk sizing. I like this 55 and it was fun to ride, really fun. But if I were to get one, I would get a 160. That just better matches my weight, my specs, and where I ride, mainly low angle powder. But here's the thing, this board's so easy to turn for size 9 boots and my weight that I would size up to a 160 even if I was riding steeper mountains like I used to before I moved to Bachelor. They only have a 55 and a 60. I'd love to see a 165. And I'd love to see a 150 so it could fit a wider variety of body types. When it comes to shape, this is tapered and directional. It's got 16 millimeters of taper. It's not super tapered, but it's definitely more tapered than most freeride boards. It's very set back on side cut with 50 millimeters back on side cut, but it's not that set back on board. So the entire stance range is very useful. And while the board does feel set back and directional, there's still a lot of tail here for landing gear if you want to get some big airs. So let's talk camber profile. There's a very mellow camber profile, but it goes well past the inserts, and then it has a long, smooth transition into a mellow early rise in the tail, and then a mellow transition up into rocker in the nose. I find that this feels pretty forgiving. I would say intermediate on up to expert. No problem with this because it's so easy to skid a turn when you get off your game. But yet at 1 foot off the chair, super stable, tracks really easy like it's full camber almost, but just without that catch of camber. Now, when it comes to edge hold, this has pretty good grip, especially for not having any real disruption that I can see. And I think that's mainly because you can get a lot of leverage here when you're on the board where the camber profile ends and really get some grip. Let's talk farther flex. It's got a medium-ish flex, maybe bordering on medium stiff, and there's a nice energy to it. And when you get down into the tail, it's pretty stiff in this region. You can lean back into it and butter pretty well though. The nose is a good bit softer, like a lot of boards that are made to be ridden in powder are. And the flex doesn't really stiffen up till you get about to the inserts. And then between the feet, that is medium stiff. The tail feels medium and the nose feels more medium soft. And overall, it's a good poppy, energetic board. And when it comes to buttering, as well as another reason why I think this is so forgiving is when you're weighted on the board, the tip and tail lift up a good bit. And you can see here, there's a lot of easy leverage into the tail that allows you to butter super easy off the tail. Same with the nose. And if you like to butter like I do, and you're not great at it like I am, you might really like this. And if you're a good butterer, you'll like this too. So when it comes to pop and ollie power, I thought it was good, not great, just kind of middle ground. There were a lot of other boards that I could pop higher and easier off of that I compared it against, but overall it did a pretty good job, and I don't think anybody's going to be really bummed unless you love those ultra poppy boards. This tracked really well into a jump, popped off it somewhat well, and then landed pretty well too. It's actually quite doable switch for how directional it is, and if you want to occasionally land switch, you have some tail here. It's not ideal, but it's doable. And when it comes to uneven snow performance, I thought the Farther did a very good job. If I was on a 160, I would think this would handle soft, thick, tracked up, chundery, powder days very well. As it stood now on the 55, it was more than competent. It never bucked me and bounced me around too much, and I felt like I could ride this all day. If I found a bump line, hard or soft, this will turn through it, no problem. It was very easy to manage. And hard, uneven snow, I got a little bit of that, and this didn't shatter too much. It has a touch of that almost hollow feel in that kind of snow, and it's something I've felt with this construction on other boards, but it's not bad at all and very doable. And it's a great all-day ride from first chair to last chair. You just have to maybe dial it back a little bit as it gets uneven, but there are so many other boards that are way worse than this. Now, when it comes to turn initiation, this was super fast for me. I feel like maybe torsionally, this is a little easier than some of its competitors, and I just was able to access this flex and make this turn super quick. This doesn't feel like it has an 8-meter side cut. I would say high 6s, low 7s if I were to guess, because this just is so quick edge to edge, and it had such a fun circle carve and across the groomer carve that it surprised me when I looked at the specs and saw an 8-meter side cut. Maybe they're just being really loose with the specs, and there's a lot more to this side cut than they say, but I just loved the turning experience, and the spring out of the turn was super fun. And when I needed to point it, although this board felt a little small for me, it did not feel hooky and like it was fighting me on a straight line, so I could straight line up, let's say to the back of the cone, hike up it, and go down it with this. And that straight line for me is pretty sketchy, and I didn't feel too sketched out with this. If I had a 60, it would be even better. Now, when it comes to the base glide, this has a nice, decent base, especially for this price point. Never a fan of die cut, but it's minimal. And this structure's just a little too much for me personally. Not a fan of it. You really have to slather on a lot of wax for this not to be problematic in certain conditions. Like firm but fair, fun kind of snow mint that's edgeable, but still pretty firm. It often feels like you have thousands of little fins holding you in place, and it slows your turn initiation down. So if you don't slap on a shit ton of wax, it can be problematic in those conditions. I wish they would dial the structure way down, but this kind of structure really shines for this board in spring when it's soft, wet, thick, sticky, and slow. You'll be jamming past everybody else, so there's always some give and take. Now, when it comes to powder, you feel less centered than you would think for a 3.25 inch setback on board all the way back. I felt like I was much further back on board. This had very easy float. I wouldn't call it a full-on dedicated powder board, but a very, very, very competent powder board. This could be your only board for powder, especially if you ride more medium angle powder to steep angle powder. This is going to be amazing, but it didn't even do that bad in low angle powder. If I had a 160, I'd have a time at Bachelor, and it feels very slashy and turny and somewhat surfy, but also it has some tail for landing. So it's a really fun design for people who love that setback surfy feel, but people who also want that more centered feel because they're going a little more big mountain, they're launching off more shit than I am. They're gonna have a time with this too. So really impressive in powder. I really liked its overall performance. On some days when I rode a lot of boards that were pretty good on powder, this ended up being the highlight of that day, which really surprised me. So Stone really did something good here when it comes to how this board floats in POW. So overall, this is a board I would love to own. I'd love to own a 160, and I'm gonna be recommending this a lot to those that fit in the spec range for the 55 and the 60. So there you have it.